Imagine a single, effortless smile in a courtroom, revealing a story that had been hiding for decades behind gas pumps and red receipt tapes. The morning session begins as dozens of small cases roll past Judge Caprio's bench. People shift in their seats with the familiar rhythm of Providence, nurses still in scrubs, delivery drivers smelling faintly of cardboard, a pair of tourists clutching parking slips like fragile souvenirs. Routine guides the room, the soft shuffle of papers, the muted coughs, the polite nods of people who hope to be done in 10 minutes. Then, the doors open. The woman who steps inside interrupts that rhythm the way a sudden draft interrupts a church service. She moves with the calm certainty of someone accustomed to polished floors and quiet bids at charity galas. Her coat hangs like it was shaped for her alone. Her bag, unmistakably expensive, looks almost defiant in this modest chamber. The kind of accessory that quietly says, "This world is not mine." She gives a small laugh before her case is even called, a laugh so light it seems rehearsed. People turn, a few frown, one man mutters something under his breath. When the clerk reads her name, she glides toward the microphone with the poise of someone selecting a seat at a private auction, not standing before a municipal judge. She tilts her head, smiling as though the whole scene is an amusing detour. Behind her, someone whispers, "It's her, the gas station guy's wife, the one from the east side." The whisper cuts through the room. It carries recognition and judgment, the kind reserved for local figures who have reputations that stretch further than their generosity. Judge Caprio scans the paperwork, expecting something simple, a routine violation, the sort he clears before his coffee cools. But something on the ticket makes him pause, just for a second. But in this courtroom, his pauses speak loudly. He looks up. "Ma'am, before we begin, can you explain why this citation notes that your vehicle was blocking emergency access during an ambulance call?" The temperature in the room seems to drop. No shuffling now, no coughing. Even the clerk's pen freezes in midair. Her smile stays, yet it looks thinner now, like a photograph left too long in the sun. A firefighter in the back row adjusts his posture, eyes narrowing. A mother with a stroller presses her lips together. The tourist couple exchange a quiet glance, sensing they've stumbled into something the travel guide never mentioned. What was moments earlier, a harmless case, has shifted. The ground beneath it feels different, heavier. She lifts her chin, preparing a reply, but the silence surrounding her is no longer polite. It's expectant, and the smile on her lips, once confident, now seems to carry the weight of a story she never planned to tell. She clears her throat, smoothing the sleeve of her tailored coat as though dusting off an invisible speck. Her voice enters the room with the same calm confidence as her stride. "My name is Marcia Reynolds, Judge." A soft wave of recognition moves through several rows. Not surprising. The Reynolds family name sits on dozens of gas stations up and down the state, a quiet empire built from a single garage her husband once rented behind a shuttered diner. He worked the pumps, fixed carburetors, saved every dollar. People still admire that story. They talk about him as the man who climbed. Marcia, though, she climbed with him, but not in the same way. She never handled the registers or inventory. Her world was the front-facing glow. Charity dinners, business holiday parties, photo booths at fundraising galas. Folks in Providence hold mixed feelings about her, admiration wrapped in suspicion. She has that quality some successful families develop, living close enough to regular people to be visible, yet far enough away to feel untouchable. So when she laughs, she doesn't mean to insult anyone. She simply doesn't see the problem the way they do. "Come on, Judge," she says lightly, almost teasing. "It was 5 minutes. I was picking up flowers for a friend's birthday. The ambulance wasn't even there when I parked." A low rumble rolls through the gallery. It isn't outrage, not yet, but something firmer. A generation raised on respect for first responders doesn't appreciate humor around blocked access. Judge Caprio folds his hands. Do you often park wherever you find convenient, Mrs. Reynolds? Her reply is instant, almost rehearsed. When you run businesses, Judge, you learn to prioritize. Some things matter more than painted lines. Her tone isn't arrogant. It's simply the tone of someone who grew accustomed to exceptions, someone who has never been forced to imagine the rules applying in their strictest form. As she speaks, Caprio flips to the second page of the file. Something catches his eye. He leans closer, then turns a page back. His brows lift slightly. Not one warning. 4. Not fines, warnings, each for nearly identical conduct. He doesn't react sharply. He simply taps the corner of the page once, a quiet habit he uses when gathering his thoughts. Ma'am Reynolds. She interrupts with a sharp, reflexive correction. Mrs. Reynolds, Judge. My husband built everything we have. The words land strangely, too defensive for a simple formality. Behind her polished exterior, a small crack appears, a hint of a life where titles matter because they are one of the few things she can still claim as truly hers. Caprio returns to the folder, his voice even. Mrs. Reynolds, you've received several warnings for similar violations, all within the same year. A man in the back whistles under his breath. Someone else mutters, figures. Her smile fades just a shade. Only those watching closely would notice, but in this room, full of quietly observant, early-rising Rhode Islanders, nothing slips by easily. She straightens, lifting her chin as if bracing for a gust of cold wind. This is being blown out of proportion, she insists. They were just warnings. But even she seems unconvinced. The ease in her voice has thinned. The certainty she walked in with has begun to shift, as though something in the file, something she thought buried, is waiting on the next page. And Judge Caprio, patient and steady, seems prepared to turn it. Judge Caprio turns another page, and a quiet stillness settles over the room. He studies the date of the last warning, tracing it with his eyes the way one traces a sentence they didn't expect to find. Mrs. Reynolds, he says slowly, this previous incident, it occurred only a few weeks before the one we're discussing today. Her posture stiffens. For the first time, her confidence flickers. A brief shadow across her expression, quickly masked but not forgotten. She rolls her shoulders back, forces a casual smile, but her fingers tighten around the strap of her bag, knuckles paling. Caprio doesn't look up yet. Instead, he asks a question that arrives with the precision of a needle. Who was driving your car on the evening of May 14th? The breath she draws stops midway. Her lips part, as if the answer is obvious. But then, she closes them again. The hesitation is unmistakable. Behind her, someone whispers, "Here we go." The judge lifts his eyes. "This signature is yours," he continues, tapping the document gently. "But the driver's name is not listed." She swallows once, too visibly. "That's an administrative mistake," she says, but even she hears how thin that sounds. Caprio's tone remains soft, but his gaze sharpens. "Ma'am, incomplete records aren't typical for this department." Marcia's hand drifts to her ring, turning it slowly, not out of vanity, but anxiety. It's a reflex she doesn't notice, but half the courtroom does. A woman in the third row crosses her arms. A man shifts his weight forward, sensing something more than a parking dispute unfolding. The judge continues. "You filed the response yourself, yet the driver remains unnamed. Why is that?" Her voice catches before she speaks. "Judge, the car is used by my family. Sometimes it's complicated to list every—" A man near the aisle exhales sharply. "That's her boy. Everyone knows." The words aren't loud, but they carry. Marcia's head snaps around, eyes cold and startled, not furious, but exposed. Judge Caprio raises a hand gently, signaling for silence, though the room was already hanging on every breath. "Mrs. Reynolds," he says quietly, "is there something you wish to clarify about who operates this vehicle?" For a long, fragile moment, she says nothing. The stillness is so complete that even the fluorescent lights seem to hum softer. Her shoulders lower, not in defeat, but in a weary admission she's trying to postpone. It was someone close to me, she manages. Someone who didn't need more attention drawn to him. Her voice isn't sharp now. It carries a strain that wasn't there earlier, the strain of someone guarding not pride, but a wound. The gallery leans in, not with judgment, but with curiosity sharpened by empathy. This isn't about privilege anymore. It isn't about a fancy handbag or a polished accent. This is about a mother holding a door shut with her whole weight, terrified of what spills out if she lets it open. Judge Caprio leans back, fingertips pressed together. "Mrs. Reynolds," he says, "this court can only work with the truth." Her eyes drop. The confident woman who laughed on her way in is gone, replaced by someone fighting a deeper fear. And for the first time since she stepped into the courtroom, the mask she carried so effortlessly begins to slip. The room feels suspended, as though every person inside is leaning forward without moving. Judge Caprio sets the file down gently, folding his hands with the deliberate calm he uses when he senses a story running deeper than its paperwork. "Mrs. Reynolds," he says, voice steady, "the court isn't here to punish your family. We're here to understand what happened." Something in that tone releases the tension she's been gripping. Her chin trembles almost imperceptibly before she steadies it. She exhales a long, fragile breath. "It was my son," she says softly. "Andrew. He was driving that night." No one murmurs now. Even the ones who suspected it remain still. Her confession isn't dramatic. It's weary, like the end of a sleepless night. She continues, each word chosen carefully, as if stepping across thin ice. "He's 22. He tries to manage college, but it's been hard for him lately. He's always been bright, but the pressure—" She stops, pressing her lips together. "He withdrew from a program he'd worked years to get into. He hasn't forgiven himself." Caprio listens without interrupting. His expression softens, but his eyes stay attentive, absorbing every detail. "He's been distant these past months," she goes on. "Shuts his door, eats little, leaves without warning, comes back at odd hours." Her words falter. "I didn't want his name tied to anything that would make him feel worse." For a moment, she looks less like a public figure and more like any mother trying to hold a struggling child above water. Caprio glances at the screen beside his bench. The clerk taps a key, and the footage from May 14th appears. Grainy, but clear enough. Marcia turns toward it and blinks hard. In the video, the car swerves slightly before stopping too close to the hydrant. The driver, Andrew, steps out, shoulders hunched, moving with the agitation of someone whose thoughts are louder than the world around him. He gestures at someone off-screen, not angrily, but frantically, as if pleading to be left alone. The sight knocks the breath out of her. "I didn't know," she whispers. "I never saw this." Her hand covers her mouth, not out of shame, out of realization. This wasn't careless behavior. This was distress. Judge Caprio leans forward, his tone gentle. "Mrs. Reynolds, what was happening at home that evening?" The room holds its breath. She closes her eyes briefly, then speaks, voice trembling. "He and my husband argued," she admits. Not shouting. Worse. Disappointment. Long pauses. The kind of silence that wounds more than words. She looks down at her own hands, now motionless. "Andrew walked out before I could reach him. I thought he just needed air. I had no idea how shaken he was." A ripple of sympathy moves through the courtroom, subtle but unmistakable. People who moments earlier judged her now see the weight she's been carrying alone. Her voice lowers. "I didn't hide his name to avoid responsibility. I hid it because I didn't know how to face the truth myself." The judge studies her carefully. His face is neither stern nor soft. simply present, the way it always is when someone finally stops defending themselves and starts speaking from the ache underneath. The silence that follows isn't cold, it's full, heavy with understanding. And in that suspended moment, the case before him transforms completely. Judge Caprio takes a slow breath, letting the weight of her confession settle before he speaks. The courtroom remains so still that the faint rustle of the American flag behind him sounds almost like fabric shifting in a draft. He closes the folder softly, not as a gesture of finality, but as a pause, the kind a doctor makes before delivering something meant to heal, not wound. "Mrs. Reynolds," he begins, "I don't believe this has anything to do with a car or a fire hydrant anymore." Her eyes lift, guarded but hopeful. "This," he continues, "is about your son, and about you." A few people in the gallery lean back, their expressions gentler than before. They're older, seasoned by decades of family storms, and they recognize the truth in his tone. "You didn't shield him from a citation," Caprio says. "You were trying to shield him from what he thinks you expect of him." The words land with quiet force. Marcia's shoulders sink as if a truth she has avoided finally found her. "I wasn't trying to judge him," she whispers. "You were trying not to," Caprio replies. But children, even grown ones, read silence as judgment more quickly than we realize. She presses a hand against her chest, grounding herself. Her voice steadies not from composure, but from understanding. "He's been withdrawing from everything," she says. "Not eating well, avoiding calls. He used to talk to me about everything, Judge. And now, it feels like he's somewhere I can't reach." Caprio nods slowly. Parents often think they need to stand between their children and every consequence. But sometimes, consequences aren't what hurt them. It's the feeling that nobody sees them. A man in the second row murmurs, "Amen," almost to himself. The judge continues, his tone firm yet warm. "Where's Andrew now?" "At home," she answers. "He hasn't stepped outside since the argument. I've been afraid to push him." Caprio takes a moment. Not hesitation, consideration. "Mrs. Reynolds," he says, "your son isn't in need of protection from this court. He's in need of connection. He needs a conversation he should have had months ago." Her eyes grow wet, though not a single tear falls. Then comes the decision, not abrupt, not dramatic, but measured, with the clarity of someone who has seen hundreds of families stand at similar crossroads. "I'm going to dismiss the fine today," Caprio says, "not because the violation didn't occur. It did, and it was serious. But punishment isn't what will help your son or you." A few heads nod in agreement. "However," he adds gently, "I want Andrew here, at the next session. Not to be scolded, to be heard. I'd like him to tell me what happened that night in his own words." She freezes, absorbing the request. It isn't a threat. It's a bridge. Caprio softens his voice even further. "Bring him not as a defendant, Mrs. Reynolds. Bring him as a young man who deserves a chance to speak without fear." The room grows warm with a collective sense of relief, the kind that appears when justice shifts from punishment to purpose. Marcia nods, slow and deliberate. Her posture is different now. The elegant composure remains, but something deeper has replaced the arrogance she walked in with. A humbled resolve, a willingness to face what truly matters. It is no longer a story about a violation. It is a story about a family stepping toward honesty. As the ruling settles over the room, Marcia gathers her belongings with unsteady fingers. The leather of her handbag, once a symbol of distance and superiority, now looks simply like an item she clings to for reassurance. She adjusts a document that doesn't need adjusting, takes a quiet breath, then another. The transformation is subtle but unmistakable. She's no longer performing. She's bracing herself for what comes next. Judge Caprio watches her carefully, not judging, observing, as one might watch someone learning to walk again after standing frozen too long. She steps back from the microphone, ready to leave, when his voice reaches her again. "Mrs. Reynolds." She turns, surprised. He softens his tone to something almost fatherly, but still firm enough to carry through the chamber. "Bring him not because the court expects it," he says. "Bring him because he needs someone willing to truly hear him." The words land with all the quiet power of a door unlocking. The gallery remains silent, but the silence feels different now, deeper, more respectful, almost reverent. A few older listeners near the back exchange glances that hold decades of their own unspoken family stories. For the first time that morning, Marcia doesn't stiffen at being addressed. She doesn't correct a title. She simply nods. Her reply arrives softer than any sentence she has spoken today, yet more grounded than all of them combined. "Judge, thank you. You may have saved more than a fine today." No dramatic quiver in her voice, no theatrics, just sincerity, heavy and humbled. She turns and begins to walk down the aisle. The wood creaks beneath each step, and even that small sound feels amplified in the stillness. No one smirks anymore. No one whispers. The courtroom that once watched her with skepticism now studies her with something bordering on empathy. Near the door she stops. Her hand slips into her coat pocket, retrieving her phone. She hesitates with her thumb hovering over the screen, as though steadying herself for a conversation far more daunting than anything in front of a judge. The room doesn't hear the ringtone. She has it on silent. But her posture changes when someone answers. Her voice drops to a whisper, barely audible beyond the first row. "Andy, sweetheart, we need to talk." A pause. Then, with a steadiness built not from confidence, but from hard-won courage. "And this time, I'm listening." She lowers the phone, closes her eyes for a brief second, and leaves the courtroom with a quiet determination that no expensive accessory could ever convey. Behind her, the gallery slowly exhales, a long, collective breath, the kind given after witnessing not justice delivered, but something rarer, a moment where someone chooses to turn toward healing instead of hiding. The door closes. And though the case is technically over, every person in the room knows the real story is just beginning.